Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. This is Double Bits Workshop. So in today's video, I will be doing an unboxing of a product that I have been greatly awaiting. This is one of those things that for the longest time I wanted to put into the shop or into the garage for the shop because it's something that I had a lot of interest in. I had a buddy with one half of essentially what this can do, and I absolutely fell in love with all of its capabilities. I have a steep learning curve to be able to utilize this product in both regards of what it can do. It is a dual-purpose tool that has been not needed, but greatly desired. I purchased this online and I had it shipped to my house the day after Christmas. So, without further ado, I bought a CNC / laser engraver, and I'm super stoked to get this thing open. So we're going to do an unboxing of it. This came from China, sadly, of course, but it is one of the best tabletop CNCs that you can purchase with the capability to be purchased with a laser. So there are 3 different types of laser versions that you can get. One that is the lower grade, I think it's a 3-watt laser, and the next step up, which is the 5-watt laser, which is what this one is, and then you can also get the Mac Daddy big, super expensive one out of the lineup. There's of course a lot more expensive laser engravers out there. That one is 10 watts. So if you look up the listings for this is listed under a 40-watt input with a 5-watt output laser. So that's what this one ends up being. The 3-watt is technically, I think, a 10-watt input with a 3-watt output. And then in order to get up to the big daddy of the 10-watt output, you need the 50-watt, or actually I think it's 50 or 80-watt input. I'll have to look that up and double check. Anyway, this is the 5-watt output, also known as the 5.5-watt output. So I am super excited. The CNC part of it is wonderful as well, because if you look at the other version of this that its competitor is at, with the $219 CNC, I think it's the 3018 or 3025 is what it's better known as, the spindle motor on it is only a 300 watt versus this is 500. So it's a little bit of a step up, and everything seems, from what I've looked at online, as more well built. I actually was sold on this from the Aurora Tech YouTube channel. That little gal and her brother do an amazing job of showcasing any and all products through a variety of laser engravers, 3D printers, all sorts of fun tech. So if you haven't checked out their channel, feel free to do so as well. Thank you very much for showcasing a wonderful laser that gave me the incentive to want to buy it and do an unboxing. Now I'm going to set this up, but I'm going to also kind of get an idea of it off camera, and then I'm going to come back with a second, or probably a video series of me having fun setting it up, my initial thoughts on everything. And I am, like I said, an absolute beginner. I have only an absolute surface understanding, no hands-on with this tool, so I'm super excited. So let's get to the unboxing. Alright, so we're met with a chunk of foam. Now I didn't see anything indicated on the box letting me know which side is up, but I figured if it looks right on the box and it doesn't look upside down on the box, then it would be upright. So I was right. So the first thing I met with is the CNC carving machine manual here. Quick glimpse through. We have disclaimers, welcome, parameters, unboxing, assembling connections, software and driver, offline controller, tool settings and gauge block, operation precautions and maintenance, as well as a Q&A at the very back of the booklet, which is 21 pages in total. And it is from Shenzhen, Comgrow Technology Co., or Comgrow. So this is the company that this laser is made from. So you will have probably, if you're in this same market like I am, have seen that picture. So let's continue on here. Next thing I'm met with looks like it's a little cardboard box right here. Opening that up, we have our power supply. Power supply here is a 120 watt, 24 volt. It is the model SMP-L051 AC-DC adapter with an input of 100 to 240 volt and an output of DC 24 volts, 5 amps. So that is the power adapter. Comes in a nice little box here. Setting that aside, pull off the next piece of foam, and then we have the main innards of everything. So this little Ziploc bag right here comes with the connector that comes with the unit. I've heard mixed reviews, I'm not sure. I will know kind of a little bit more here, like I said, throughout the week playing around with it. But this is what you use to start your actual laser engraver or your actual CNC itself. So you'll rest it on top of this, have this hooked up, and it will give you your starting point of your absolute zero before it starts going through its initial setup and starting its pathing to engraving or CNCing. So it looks like this is the collet right here. No scuffing or damage. And it says clamping nut. And that looks like it's on top of the primary spindle. We have a bag with our brackets and some wrenches and bolts. These, from what I can tell and looked at online, are what hold down your work onto the actual bench itself. Nice. And I was curious, there is one reviewer that didn't have this. I lucked out and have it, or they just updated everything since that person's comment, but we have our bits here. So we have our end mills. So it looks like we have 5 of our primary end mills. And then we have some small V-bits, it looks like here, which is nice. I actually ended up purchasing, and they got here just before this did, some 60-degree V-bits for this to kind of play around with. Now we have some more small machine screws. We have another collet for the spindle and some more tech screws or machine screws. It looks like we have the 4 feet for the unit, as well as we have a 3M sticky pad onto what looks to be a cord grabber on there. I don't know if you can quite see that too well. We're given an actual little Yonggong Tools 8-piece Allen wrench kit. That's actually really awesome. It comes on a little keyring right here. All 8 of them. And it's in its nice own little baggie that I can actually hang on the wall with the kit, which I have an area designated for this that I need to clean up in the garage. I need to do that. So we have a micro USB, as well as we have ourselves a micro USB or micro SD card that is an 8 gig. And then this is the adapter for it, which is awesome. I didn't know it would actually come with an adapter. So continuing on, here is the controller. It's not too bad. So I am 5'10", and I'm told that I have decent sized hands. They're not tiny at all. So this is a smaller-ish controller for kind of like your average person, or average male at least, since I'm just an average guy. And actually pretty decent buttons on here. I was worried they'd either be super mushy or it'd be like one of those setups where it was so hard to push them down that I would just end up wearing them out. But they actually seem pretty intuitive and nice. We have a kind of basic ribbon connector, and on here we have a little display We have our directionals for XYZ access, reset button, back, and then an OK select. And we have a connector on top, and it looks like this is where the micro SD card will go. So that's awesome. Looking in here, we have ourselves a brush. So as you're utilizing the CNC and needing to brush away any debris that is getting in front of the end mill, you have yourself a nice brush. It's actually a very decent brush on there too. Very fine and very smooth and soft. It's not super hard and bristly. It actually is a decent brush. Alright, so we have our 3 sides. They have the protector on it, but this is for the laser capability. It will keep the debris away for when you're actually using this as a CNC, but when you're using it as a laser, I was told that supposedly these are actually decent enough that you should be able to look through them at the laser momentarily. It's not meant to be like you're just dead set gaze on the laser, because that'll potentially harm the eyes, but if you're intermittently just kind of glancing at it every once in a while, this is strong enough to be able to glance at the laser as it's in use. Alright, so here is our spindle motor. Looks like it has a little protector on here of some kind. I don't know if that actually has to stay on there for operation. I'll have to look into that. There is our collet. And this is an ER 11-5mm is what it says. And then there is the initial collet. And there's another one down here. I'm going to set that kind of off the side on the foam. Alright, so now we have our additional connector for our main board. Or actually no, this is to the computer it looks like. It looks kind of like the standard printer cable. I don't know if you're able to really see that too well through the plastic, but it's just your standard printer cable from the look of it. And it has some kind of little yellow safety, I'm guessing for the cord for where it connects on the unit, so that way it doesn't get bumped out. You can utilize this unit connected to your PC, or you can also utilize the controller with the SD card to run tasks kind of like a 3D printer without having to have it connected to the computer, which is very awesome. A couple of different upgrades for this in particular. Apparently some of the prior models, from what I was glancing at, had a few things people complained about, so they heard their calls and heard their cries, you could say, and they made some changes, which, oh, this is sturdy feeling here. So let me scooch this out of the way. Give you a better glance here. So on this unit, looking at it, this is actually really nice cast plastic. It is plastic, but it is heavy duty. I didn't know for sure in that regard if this was going to be something that was 3D printed and it was kind of cheaply 3D printed, because there's a few different setups that I was glancing at that looked completely 3D printed, and I don't feel like they used ABS or a good strong type of PLA for it, and it was kind of chintzy, and I saw a few of those fall apart. So I'm happy to see this is actually a cast chunk of hardened plastic. It feels durable and almost steel-like. It isn't giving me a cold feeling, and I can see a line on it, so I definitely know it's plastic, but that feels a bit heavy duty. So we have our up and down access side to the side. Ooh, that's actually really nice. You have a turn handle on here to give you the ability to go left to right. You have switches on here to kind of kill the signal as it goes up and down, so that way if it goes down too hard, it's not going to destroy the motor mechanism or anything. It's actually going to limit it out. So these little limiter switches to keep it from damaging itself. A few connectors kind of in this area right here, wrapped around nice and neat so that way it can ship easy. All the connectors look good, nothing looks damaged. This is actually like billet aluminum. I used to be a glazer back in the day for a construction company, and we use all sorts of types of aluminum, and this is a nice kind of more aircraft grade aluminum. This is definitely a lot more heavy duty stuff than what you would install a window with. And this cover on the back here is a lot nicer than some of the other models I looked at through videos and stuff, covering up your main board. So here's your connector for that connection that I was looking at here earlier to your computer, and it looks like, I'm not quite seeing where this part goes, maybe, I don't know for sure. But on here is your two switches. If I remember right, in the upright position for both of them means that you're CNCing. If they're both down, it's for the laser engraver. I'm not quite sure. I'll get back to you on that one, but I believe that's how it is. They both need to be up or both need to be down for what you're using it for. And it's definitely back heavy. It doesn't want to stand up, but that doesn't matter. It's going to get mounted to the main table. So setting that aside very gently. I'll pull them out so you can see. But here are those 3 panels I was talking about. Still have the safety on them so that way they don't get scratched and marred in transit. For those laser protection, kind of like plexiglass, if you will. It's actually more like a thick laminate plastic. You can definitely tell like the cut marks and everything in here. Alright, so for the next part of the package, here's a thin piece of foam. And then you have, pull them out so you can see, but here are those 3 panels I was talking about. Still have the safety on them so that way they don't get scratched and marred in transit. For those laser protection, kind of like plexiglass, if you will. It's actually more like a thick laminate plastic. You can definitely tell like the cut marks and everything in here. And for the next bit you have your primary base here. Pulling it out. It's all in the last piece of foam. Kind of set this down. Ooh, she's snug in there. Snug as a bug in a rug. Oh, that looks cool already. So as you can see on here, you have your main motor, and then you actually have an adjustment handle for it. Super nice, super quiet. Like you can feel a little vibration of it clicking and rotating, but it's ever so faint. And then I can actually hear it rolling. It has multiple bearings on the bottom here on the guide rails, which is super nice. And then you have a screw type setup here that hooks into this, and it's that same hard plastic again. Ooh, actually, dang, it does look like I have a minor fracture right here. I will have to let them know there is a crack through this guide rail right here with these 2 bearings, and see if they can ship me just this one component. So there is one little bit of damage there. Oh, and it does look like right here has a crack as well in the plastic. It doesn't look like it's necessarily currently affecting the operation, but eventually, over use, heat, and time, those I think are going to fracture the rest of the way through. So I'll have to contact them about that, sadly. Everything else on here looks solid. The aluminum and everything else, boards, cables, all look good. I'm not seeing any damage on those. I'm going to be thorough on them so that way I can get a request in on that, because this did come from China. I've heard that the company is really good about getting back with you, so hopefully they're able to get back with me pretty quickly. That's your little kill switch. And you can't even, like, you're not even hearing that, are you? But this is rotating, and I'm not even hearing it. But yeah, this is all heavy-duty aluminum. Alright, so kind of glancing at the gantry, what I noticed was that this was actually flipped in the opposite way. So I took a second and rotated this. It took quite a while, which is nice that this gives you the ability to have micro adjustments. But I moved this over here, spinning the wheel, so that way everything could go over. I didn't depress the limiter switch in the back, so it's just right before that. Looking into the, kind of glancing at an assembly video a little bit more closely, these little boards need to get mounted first, utilizing these guys, and then the gantry can go on top, and then putting the spindle motor on will keep everything a little bit lighter and a little bit more safer, so that way there's no potential drops, tumbles, or anything of such. So I'm going to take these before I mount the gantry. Alright, give you guys a little bit of the peel in action that a lot of people like. Hey, there you go. Pretty cool looking. Oh, that came out nice. These do look pretty cool. And since they're meant to be able to actually give you the ability to look at the laser, I can definitely see why it's a certain type of shade of like goldish brown. Alright, last little ASMR for you. And there you go. There are the 3 panels. Now we also have these screws right here. They have special nuts in them, so that way they can go into the T-track. So what we're supposed to do is slide the bolts through. And then you can just lightly screw on the nuts so that way it doesn't fall through. Do this for each and every one of the holes based on which side it is, making sure on there you'll see a flat side and a curved side. Make sure the flat side is faced to the outside or towards the actual bolt itself. That way when it clamps down, those little grooves or lines that are on there, I don't know if you'll be able to see those too well, the little grooves on there on one side can actually bite into the T-track. Didn't quite get that one tight enough. Left it a little too loose. Alright, so there are 4 bolts per side, including the back. So there should be 12 overall bolts for you. So actually, instead of it being 12, you'll utilize the side. The sides will get these bolts, which will be 8 in total. And then the back, I was just glancing at, I'm wrong there. The back will actually get these 4 bolts, which match the same as the gantry. So to kind of get an idea here. We'll see real quick. Not that size. Actually, alternatively, you can lightly put them on, and then as you start to twist them, they should rotate into place. Alright, so what I kind of figured out is on here, these little rectangles, you don't want them to go in perfectly one direction or the other. If they go in flat or horizontal, they just pop right out. And if you try to put them in upright, there's a little bit of an odd grooving on it, so it doesn't actually stay in there. But if you look at the end of it, it's kind of shaped like an S. So what you want to do is stick it in such a fashion that as you start tightening it, it'll actually kind of lock in a position like this, and then you're tightening it, pushing up on that. Vice versa for the other side. Alright, so I just kind of flushed it with the back. Make sure the sides are good. This one's flush, this one sticks out just slightly. I'm guessing it's just a milling change, which is just fine. Alright, so we're going to mount on the back piece last. There's already milled holes ready in the back. They're all tapped to the same thread pitch as these bolts. I'm putting them loose so that way if it needs to wiggle a little to get another one in, I can get them all started. So for the sides, I utilized, I guess this one's unmarked. Well, dang. Back is a 4mm, and this is a lot smaller than that. Probably a 3. Looking at their sizing here, that's a 4, 3.5, 3. So this is a 3mm for the sides, and then a 4mm for the back. Now that that's ready, make sure that this is off to the right side if you're looking at the back of the machine and the front is in front of you. I'll take the gantry now. And it's actually going to kind of press a little snug, there it goes, onto those legs. Get one started, and on the back one, jump over. Alright, so everything is tight with the quarter turn. These two little connectors together here. Very satisfying little click to it. Here's the 4mm and the 3 out of the set so far. Now that I feel the entry is on properly and the pictures in the manual are now matching what I see, I'm going to mount the spindle, even though it says, oh, here you go. So the assembly pictures show here, and then you can throw these on too. I think I'm going to wait just so it's not clattering around. But now I will mount the spindle. Which is a 3mm. Says do not lock the screw too tightly, and this opening right here is towards the face in the pictures. So there is a red dot on the motor. At least there's supposed to be. Just looking at the side, it is right here. So I'll slide this into. Alright, so watching the instruction, or looking through this and seeing a video on it, the next setup is to hook up the spindle wire as well as the Z-axis cable right here. So that, pop it on top. On here it is very nicely written saying spindle plus as far as the positive and the negative. Looking at the diagrams and pictures, you will see a red dot. If you do not see the red dot, this is flat machined versus dimpled on this side to signify positive and negative. So this side right here, it looks like I be a possibility for this. I will double check on that, but it's showing it getting clamped to right here. So the positive symbol is right here as well. If it's not red, it should just show the plus sign like it does on mine. And then the other, of course, will be the negative. That'll go on that side. Then the two left over is the PWM as well as the laser. Which actually, I think I put those in wrong. Yep, looks like the short wire connects here, and then the long wire connects down here. There we go. And then we got one more for the stepper motor in the back right here. So everything seems pretty tight. Tentatively, I'm not seeing anything for these two right here because I believe those are just for the laser connection. So I might temporarily twisty tie or something these up out of the way. I already connected the Y-axis limit switch off to the side over here. Now for the back side, so it states in here that this cable is supposed to go down and get connected right here. We have this connection piece right here for the main power, and then this stepper motor right here for its connection. That is the power and emergency cable there. Alright, so a bit has transpired. It is now the next day, and or actually evening after the next. I forgot to be able to film last night, had to take care of a few things, but I got my replies from Comgrow, and it is a wonderful setup that they have going on there. So in under 8 hours, I was able to get a response and also a timely let know of like what was going on essentially. Or they let me know exactly what was going on pretty quickly, which was nice. And what ended up happening is that I didn't know and was not aware. They send this unit, and it's the same for anyone if you're buying just the CNC or if you're buying the combo kit, and then they send a secondary box. That is this little guy. This is how it came in the mail, and we'll unbox this real quick. But what transpired was, as far as the two brackets that are cracked, from the manufacturer, talking with them, they got me in touch with their engineering department, and that department covers anything that's going to be, if there's any problems with the system, they just more or less diagnose with you to see if it's something that's user error or if it's something software related, and then they kind of guide you through those things that they can via email. And then if that all else fails, what they'll do is send replacement parts or have you pay the shipping and send the whole unit back, and then they'll just send you a brand new one or a refurbished one. The unit itself is definitely a new one, which I'm really enjoying everything on it, of course, and I purchased a brand new one. And everything else looks good. From what I can tell, that is just a manufacturer defect. Something just happened in the mold, what have you, with the plastic, it ended up cracking. So I'm not super concerned or worried about that, and I'm excited to continue looking through and looking over the unit. I do want to test it out and look into making sure that everything works, that I don't have any further issues, and then take longer to process the order and have that communication. I'm really happy with how fast they are about it though. So now let's get on to the unboxing of the laser itself. Alright, so there was nothing else. I cut the label, and this is what we've got. Alright, it. So I did pull out the glasses, and then I was like, wait, let's finish the rest for the unboxing. So I did pull off a protective sleeve. I still do have a couple little rub marks on them, but these will give me the ability to momentarily glance at the laser while it's in use. These are not meant to be able to have the capability of me watching the laser for the length of, let's say, if I ended up having a 40-minute long process going on that was burning a large piece utilizing the entire facet of this. These are not meant to be able to protect my eyes 100% of the time as I'm watching it. These are meant to be intermittent glances, and it's the same principle of I can put sunglasses on and glance at the sun, but I'm not going to stand there staring at the sun because it will hurt my eyes. Same principle goes for the laser. Okay, we've got a mounting bracket kit for the laser. Looks like we have an extension on the connectors, as well as we have some additional connectors that you can splice into. So this laser kit is able to be purchased for the Ender 3 and a couple of other 3D printers, and of course this CNC. This CNC is built to be able to just right off the bat plug it into the actual laser itself, and it affixes right inside the same bracket as the spindle does. So you just remove the spindle, slide this in its place, and then you plug these in and go. That's the beauty that I love of this kit, that also was made by the same production company that 8 months ago started the Kickstarter that created and kickstarted this project. So I won't be needing these potentially for any of my setup, which is nice. Now getting to the actual laser itself. So as you can see, here's the box. Oh. And it also ships with, hey, look at that, 3 little like balsa wood samples here. A bit thinner, probably only a few millimeters thick, otherwise probably looks like 1/8 inch if you were to go off of an SAE setup rather than millimeter or metric. And it is just little sheets of plywood from the looks of it, so these will be fun to test with and see what the initial setup and cuts look like. So here's the laser itself. I haven't taken it out yet. Very genteel. Alright, so this is the whole shebang. We got our QC pass sticker on it, and of course, well, the laser goes out the bottom. They say that this is rated as long as it is pretty close to the project to give you the same kind of setup, an intermittent glance, but anything past this point, if your project's below that, you should not look at under any circumstances without the glasses. Otherwise it will potentially cause irritation, if not permanent damage, depending on how long you look at it and if you're more susceptible to that potential visual radiation causing the damage, or just burning rather. Has a nice cooling fan in the back, and then you have your main, looks like control board in the back here. And there will be the 2 ports that you connect these in. And let's see. On the board here we have VCC ground and PWM ground. So on here we have PWM, so that'll go into that side. On this side we have what just plainly says laser, but I'm guessing that is the VCC ground, or GND. So yeah, I'm super excited. And on this little bracket here, on the actual gantry's spindle, like slide in, they have 4 notched corners for this to rest in there. And they tell you to be super light with it. You don't want to absolutely clamp it down when you tighten this down and break or damage anything, since it is a laser and it is very, very breakable. Put it back in this little protective sleeve. So yeah, there is the laser attachment. It's all nice and neat into the little protective box. Alright, so this is the total kit for 366, depending on what the tax bracket of where you're at looks like. I spent about $360 myself on this whole kit, all said and done, shipping and handling, what have you, to my front door. I think technically shipping and handling is free, but I did notice the total kind of changed slightly when I put it in my shopping cart. So I think they kind of factor it into the total cost anyway, and then still kind of show it as free. I'm not quite sure on that end, but it did ship from I think Shenzhen, China is what it said on the label, to New Jersey, and got to me pretty darn quick. I ordered this just after Christmas, and here it is January 4th. January 3rd is when the laser came in yesterday, like I said. Otherwise, or no, the laser came in today, and it was January 3rd is when I got the response when I sent it out on January 2nd, late at night. So from late at night to really early in the morning, roughly around just under 8 hours, I was able to get that response from the crew and got in contact with the engineer. He said he would actually ship me 2 of those new brackets, or reissue them and ship them out to me as soon as he could, which was awesome to hear. I was able to send pictures, let them know exactly what it was. They said they might look into it, and then he got right on there, or she, I'm not quite sure, and they said that it would be sent out right away. So I'm super excited and stoked to be able to get those installed later. As it is currently, I do not believe if I was to try this out once or twice or a few times, it would cause any issue. The crack goes on the top of the bracket that mounts to the frame, as you saw earlier, so that pressure of moving up and down might eventually kind of break and fracture it out. Something on a brand new product I wouldn't want there, but even though that was one of the more worst case scenarios, I still am getting it replaced free of charge, which is awesome and amazing. I definitely have a renewed respect for the company. I have heard good reviews, but it's nice to be able to have it firsthand as well, and I'm happy to pass that along to you guys. So as I said earlier, you get the CNC as is, just for what you would purchase whether you got it as a kit or not, and then they send you the laser as well. If you're to purchase the laser by itself, it usually goes for around $199.99. Sometimes they'll have it on sale as cheap as $159.99, and a little cheaper depending on where you get it at. So it depends on the sales and which power of laser you are going for. This is the 5-watt output, 5.5 watt output laser, which is an input of 40 watts. So that'll be the change up too. A few sites will boast it being 40 watts of output, but what they're meaning is it's 40 watts of input that gives you an output of the 5 watts. That was the one thing that was kind of an odd discrepancy. And if I remember right, the lower one from this one was 7-watt input and it gave you a 4-watt output. So if you kind of push it and test it, you can get it to 4 watts if I remember right, but otherwise it's technically just under that. And then their next step up was the 50-watt input that turned into a 10-watt output. So I'll kind of give you a little bit of a varying grade there depending on which one you purchase. And also the 10-watt output one, I think if I remember right, the laser by itself is around $350. So what I have sitting in front of me for just the laser, depending on which site that you end up going through. So yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to plug in the unit now, and I'm going to get the initial turn on and just kind of preliminarily check to make sure everything at least turns on and functions. I'm going to hook it up to my computer and kind of run through the initial download and use of the software that it kind of gave a little bit of information on in the booklet, and I'm going to let you know how that turns out, as well as I might try a first preliminary test piece and do a time lapse of it for you. Alright, so I plugged in, turned it on, but I'm kind of geeking out a little bit because I have a controller. You can actually adjust on here hitting the back button the speed of which it moves back and forth. Otherwise it's standard X1 for speed, or how much it's moving, which I think is centimeters, is just a little bit. I'm not quite sure, actually it might be a bit more than that, but yeah, it's a bit more than that. I'm just geeking out over the fact that I can control it. I'm not quite sure on this end. What I might do on here is I might either cut the zip tie or temporarily just kind of put these back so that way they don't interfere with the spindle firing up or anything. I don't believe there's any issues with it for the most part, but just be on the safe side, probably going to tuck these back here without getting like a serious bend or flex in them. The odd part is in the instruction manual, these two lines don't exist, because I believe this came out before they had the laser upgrade for this. Not quite sure exactly, but yeah, so the controller's right here, ports on top for the SD card, and I'm just kind of geeking out and having fun here. Anyway, so now I'm going to set up and kind of read over and maybe have a test sample to try out the spindle motor and everything first before I look at doing anything with the laser. and just kind of see what it looks like on the software side of things, and I will get back to you. Alright, so I played around with the software just a little bit. I can control the unit via the USB, or I can actually use it on this little controller here to go up and down, so on and so forth. So I just mounted up a board that I had from the last project I did, and I'm just going to bore a hole straight down just to kind of test, going up and down, kind of slowly grading it in. So we'll do that right now. That's exciting. So it's something just basic, but I was just testing to see how well it would go in, move around. I have read the reviews a lot of people like, and a lot of people also kind of don't like the bits that come with this for just the basic in mills. So we can try one of their, not 60-degree bits, but one of these little guys right here. Alright, so we'll try this again, a little bit over. Alright, so it's a little off, but that worked amazing, just utilizing this little guy right here. So let's try to just bore in the straight hole down now. Alright, so you can kind of see what I was going for here. I was playing around with a backwards E, and then kind of doing a little circuit board thing. But that's just utilizing the controller. Alright, so I am super stoked about this setup. I've been thinking it over. I had ordered this just after Christmas, like the next day. I was looking at it on Christmas even, and it took the 24 hours for me to be like, yep, pulling the trigger, we're just making that purchase. And this space is going to evolve and change and move around a little bit, but I am super stoked with it. So I'm going to look over some software, everything's hooked up, and I'm going to play around with the laser first, I believe. And then probably do a video on the CNC later. It's going to take me a little bit longer to figure that one out. So, on to the next bit. So there's a bracket that you can attach to the back of this, kind of that clamping formation. This is a long-winded screw, I'm guessing for the fact that you can purchase just this kit for your 3D printer instead of the actual Robo CNC. There's a little rubber foot I forgot to put on there. And it does just press right on top. Alright, so I had to reconfigure the mount just slightly because it had a tilt to it, so I threw a washer in it so that way it would kind of correct itself up a little bit. Using the machine screws in the back, I've connected the two wires and I have turned both switches in the down position as it says in the video on Amazon. So let's see. Whoop. Yep, she comes on alright. So I'll have to run a test here in a second, see how it's working. Had that on way too high. Let's turn that down a bit. Looks like I still need to turn it down a little bit. Well, I forgot to change the size. So I'm really enjoying it, but I definitely know there is a bit that needs honed in on this a bit. So one major hurdle for me is just understanding the software it came with, which is the Laser GRBL, and that's just kind of a general coding for anything having to do with laser engraver. It's free source, it's open source type deal, so anyone can use it, which is awesome. With free service like that, you do have a few kind of give and takes with it. It is still very powerful from what I'm able to see and kind of glean off of that. The engravings that I did on here, first one was just way too strong up here. I dropped it down, got better. So you can see this one's faintly here. This one got a lot better, but it's really tiny. So on this side, I enlarged it. So this one turned out pretty decent. I was happy with that. Downfall that I'm running into, and I feel like my friend who has one, and just in general, anyone that plays around with the laser engraver is going to run into, is that these little samples it comes with is like a little plywood, balsa wood, and it works great for this process. No issues or qualms about that. Downfall of it is if I get everything tuned in on this, and then I swap over to full stock or just normal wood, I have to change all of my settings for that. So if I have kind of a ratio going and have some numbers in my head and I'm punching them in, kind of going through with what size it is, how strong the laser is, how quickly it's moving, so on and so forth, that information is going to be different if I swap over from this thin balsa wood or even just plywood, and then I jump into this guy. So I still enjoy the way it looked, but as you can see with the grains in the wood and also just how this is, it engraved well, but not as well as it did on the other prior piece. Now I like the way it looks, but it's not exactly at a first glance can you know exactly what that is. Alright, so that will do it for the unboxing and the initial kind of setup and play around of the unit. This is kind of a review, not really at the same time. I'm just kind of going over the initial process of opening up and playing with the unit. This video right now currently is covering just the initial setup and the laser engraver attachment. In the future video, I will be going over and getting a little bit more than just kind of a quick once over with the software for the CNC side of things. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to have a little bit more fun on that end. I'm really enjoying the laser. I definitely know there is a few struggles to be had for sure, just with the initial setup and the software and just figuring out exactly, like I said earlier, the not temperatures, but just the length time of how long the actual laser stays in one place, if it moves around a lot faster, just kind of adjusting that speed and how much power you're putting to the laser. Because if I do a constant 100% and I'm doing a very slow movement, I'm basically just kind of trying to cut everything that the laser goes over, and I'm causing a lot of scorching and burning that's unnecessary for what I want to achieve. So there's going to be a little bit of a formula to it, and I'm going to eventually figure that one out. As far as the CNC side of things, stay tuned. Hopefully in the next coming videos and me playing around with this a little bit more, I can give you a little bit more information on that. And ultimately, the question I know that we're all kind of asking as woodworkers, is this an actual viable item to have in the wood shop? Just kind of from my first-hand experience so far with the unit, I wouldn't necessarily feel it is the best setup to have constant wood dust on as far as the woodworking shop. If I was to have this into a more contained spot in the wood shop, then maybe. Otherwise, I feel like this kind of lives and exists in a little closet or in some kind of little cabinet that you build for it, if not the garage, as I currently have it in my garage and have set up a spot for it. I can create dust collection and everything else, just like a lot of standard CNC machines have, or laser engraver setups have, for getting rid of the dust or smoke that is generated by those. Now, as for something like this size, I wouldn't necessarily feel that I need a lot of space, and it's not going to make as much waste and debris as its counterparts definitely could. So it's going to be a lot better in that regard. Thank you all so very much for kind of tuning in and looking this over. I'll give a little bit more in-depth down the road as I'm continuing playing around with this. I'm happy to kind of unveil it a bit. I'm super excited. There's a little bit of a worrisome kind of bump in the road at first until I had that understanding that it came in 2 boxes and that there are 2 separate shipments. The 2 units underneath do still have the cracks, as you saw earlier. I'm waiting for those replacement parts, but they have been shipped, and the actual producer, Comgrow, has reached out and talked to me and is reassuring me that everything is being taken care of. They're awesome. I'm loving the support so far that I've gotten from them. It is sad that I have some damage on the unit. Currently is not affecting its uses and its ability to be in use currently, which is awesome. But it is nice to know that even though I have spent full price on a unit, it will still end up getting fixed, so there is kind of that insurance to it. We don't even get that kind of insurance with cars and a variety of other things down the road. Sometimes it feels like, regardless of purchasing it brand new at full cost, just like with this unit. It is a cheaper item for sure. They've been on the market for 8 months, but because of the Kickstarter and everything, the way that they're set up and the way that they've done their marketing, this is a very affordable desktop CNC, so I am very excited for it, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as well. So have yourself a wonderful evening. If you haven't already, make sure and hit that like button. Subscribe if you don't mind. It helps out every single person that does so. Hit the notification bell if you want to get notifications each and every time that I upload videos. Thank you all so very much, and have yourself a wonderful day.